and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Anna, and as you can tell by the title of this video, we are going to talk about all of the books I read in July, and also the books I do want to read in August. I'm going to make, both videos into one. I think it's just much more, efficient, if you will. And I'm filming this currently in the 28th of July. So there is one book that I am going to finish still in the month of July. I'm just not going to have time to film it and include it. So I'm going to start by talking about that one, which is The Silent Man by Brandon Sanderson. I am, I think, 73% through. I don't know, but you can tell that I'm very, very close to finishing it. But I only have time to film today, so I'm not going to include it as I finish this book. But I am almost close to finishing it, and honestly, I am enjoying this book a lot. Now, is this my favorite story of his? No, it is not. It's, I don't want to say it's a boring story, but this book is definitely much more character-driven than I was expecting. We are following, the Silent Man, or Nomad, as Brandon Sanderson calls him, and we do know this character. I'm not going to say who it is, because this character does belong in the Stormlight Archive. He is from the world of Roshar, and I just absolutely love that, because I finished reading Wind and Truth, and I finished the Stormlight Archive back in February. And when I told you that I miss that damn series so much, I do. I miss that series so much. I miss all of the characters. So seeing this particular character here in this story, it's just been, amazing. I'm loving it. I'm loving how he's reminiscing on the old times, how he's reminiscing on Roshar, and all the mentions of that planet and the events that happened in the Stormlight Archive. I am enjoying that a lot, but the story is just meh so far, So we follow this Silent Man, and he ends up in this planet where everything just burns. Literally, the sun burns everything. People have to constantly be fleeing from the sun, and it's a very small planet, which means that it's very easy and fast to walk around and to drive around. But still, the people here are constantly running away from the sun. They are constantly trying to find shade, and even the way that they plant and they grow things, it's very bizarre, because the sun, rises up, right? So the sun rises up, and then the planet, is doing their rotation. So whenever it's cool enough, the people go there, they plant their seeds, the seeds grow really, really fast due to the sunlight, and then they pick up all the crops, and then they have to leave again because the sunlight is about, to come from the other side. So the people here are constantly running away from the sun. It is not a nice life. It's a very, very hard life, in fact. And I don't even know how these people are alive. This is the proof that human race is adaptable to anything. It can adapt to anything. It is a plague. We are a plague, because even in a planet where the sun literally melts the ground, because even the rocks melt, we still survive. We still find some way of surviving, and he finds himself in this planet because he is running away from the Night Brigade, from an organization that is trying to kill him because of something that he once had. So he's a link to something that the Night Brigade wants to find, and he's also always on the run. So he understands this people and the way that they live more than he thought he would. And it's just us following his adventure while in this planet, trying to find a way to leave this planet, run away from the Night Brigade, because obviously they found him, but he's also trying to find a way to help these people, because these people are not going to live that long in this planet. The conditions in this planet are just getting worse, worse, and worse. So that's what he's trying to do. And like I said, it's not really an amazing story. It's too sci-fi for me, which is so weird to say, because I know that the Cosmere is going to become sci-fi. I know that's going to happen. I know that that's the future for the Cosmere, but I'm still very, reticent? I think that's how you say it, so I'm just going to say reticent of that happening. I don't know, I'm just not ready for the sci-fi elements, because I'm not really into sci-fi, and even the story, it's not, one of the greatest. It's just him running away and helping these people run away as well. So the story is nothing special, but I really like the main character. Like I said, I really like the references to the Stormlight Archive, just to the characters from that series. I just love that, okay? I'm a sucker for it, what can I say? But I also really like the world, because it's so fascinating how Brandon Sanderson took into account so many things. He took into account, the size of the planet, how the people can move really, really fast, how this planet, despite being small, has a lot of gravity, and has the nuclear of the planet is very dense. So that also plays into a part of how the world works. Just all of those things that I do not understand anything, okay? I do not understand anything of that gibberish, but I just like the fact that he took all of those things into account. So yeah, I'm currently reading The Silent Man. I am enjoying it. I think it's going to be a 4-star. I don't think it's going to be more than that. I do like this more than Tress, but I still prefer Yumi and the Nightmare Painter when it comes to the secret projects. But if I do have time, Anna from the future is going to say how she felt about this book, because anything can change in these few pages. And now going through all of the books I read in the month of July. So I did start Storm of Swords in June, but I only finished it this month in July, and I loved it, okay? I loved it. I loved it so much. It was literally the best book. The best book that I've read this year, and the best book that I've read in my entire life. It was one of the easiest 6 stars that I've ever given to a book.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Yep.
It is amazing. It is perfection. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, that's how much I loved this book. It was literally the easiest 6 stars I could give. That is the biggest compliment that I can give this book, because it was amazing. It was everything that I wanted. I just loved where the story went. I'm just amazed at how much, George R. R. Martin can really higher up the stakes. Stakes are always higher. There's always something happening. The book is 1,000 pages long, but I wouldn't change a single word, a single letter. I wouldn't change a paragraph, like nothing. I just absolutely love where the story went, where the story is going. I'm really, really excited for the 4th book. I loved the character development in this book, particularly with Jamie and with Tyrion, because Jamie, I do not like that man, and I still don't really like him, but he is growing a little bit on me. I do have to admit that, because I do see his efforts to redeem himself and to become a better person. And with Tyrion, it was the other way around, where he would do anything to protect his family. He always protected them, no matter how they treated him. Yet now, for what he did and the way that his family really treated him, and how they accused him of a murder that he did not commit and almost executed him, Tyrion was just like, nah sis, you ain't playing with me. I'm not doing this anymore. Y'all are done. And he just literally, he got his vengeance and he just dipped and he left. And I am so happy for that, because I was just sick and tired of how they were treating Tyrion the whole time. His own family hated him, so why was he helping his family? You know what I mean? So I loved that character development, how he became, okay, I will do anything for my family. I don't care if they treat me bad. They're still my family. They're still blood of my blood. To peace, y'all. I'm a dip. Goodbye. Y'all are not my family. I do not care about you, and I will do everything in my power to ruin you. And I absolutely love that. That is top tier behavior. I support that, and I will continue supporting him in the next books to come, because I am pretty sure he's not going to be, or he's never going to be, the bad guy. But yeah, so overall, I absolutely love A Storm of Swords. It was just everything to me, and I don't think, and it just makes me a little bit sad, because I am pretty sure I'm never going to read a book just as good as Storm of Swords. Like, I'm just not. It's impossible. And then the second book that I finished also in the month of July was O Ano da Morte de Ricardo Reis, do José Saramago. And this, he's a Portuguese author, and I actually really liked some of his works previously, because I read O Memorial de Convento, and I also read Ensaio sobre a Cegueira, or Blindness, because it is translated to English. And I was really excited to read this one. It was not for me. It was simply not for me. This is not poorly written. Of course it isn't. It is José Saramago, so it's not poorly written. And I did really like the themes that he discussed in this book, talking about the dictatorship in Portugal with Salazar, and how people were reacting to it, what people were saying back then, and just everything that was happening. But what I didn't know was that this book was just vibes. I thought we were going to have a plotline, because from his other 2 previous books that I mentioned, you do have a plotline. And I was hoping that this book also had one, but it really didn't. It was just, the main character, Ricardo Dias, walking around Lisbon and just commenting on everything that he saw, which, it's fine, but I wasn't expecting that. I needed a story, I needed a plot, and I just could not find that plot, okay? It was just nowhere to be seen. It was just him walking around, just talking about everything that he saw, and that's, it's fine. It's just not for me. I usually, I like a story when it has everything. A little bit of everything. Plot and characters. I don't like when it's just a character. Especially because Ricardo Reis, he is a little bit boring in my opinion, because he follows the philosophy of Stoicism. So, he's boring. Okay, he is. He's just boring. He doesn't have any feelings. He doesn't really like living life, in a flashy way, let's say. So, obviously, that does make him boring. I did like, though, when he was talking with Fernando Pessoa. I just absolutely loved that. It was so funny, because Fernando Pessoa is a ghost. He died, and that's why he came back to Portugal, because he was living in Brazil. He came back to Portugal because Fernando Pessoa died, and Fernando Pessoa became a ghost, and he's going to roam around Lisbon for 9 months, because that's what he said, oh, we can roam around for 9 months apparently, so that's what I'm going to do. And I loved the conversations that they had, because they had conversations about death. Do we really die? Do we really live? Are we even alive today? Or what is death? Just all of those topics. I just absolutely loved that, and I just thought the conversations was so funny. But everything else, it just really wasn't for me, which is a shame. And I would have to give this 2 stars. I know, this is, who am I to give a 2-star to José Saramago? He literally won the Nobel Prize of Literature. Like, who am I to give this man a 2-star? But it really was that, for me, because I was expecting a plot. Like I said, I was expecting a plot. I didn't really get the plot. The main character was a little bit boring. This book stands on writing and themes, but that is all for me. So unfortunately, I did have to give this a 2-star. And the third book that I read in the month of July was Love Theoretically by Adley Hazelwood. And I'm not going to, talk too much about this book because I've done a dedicated reading vlog for this one, which was the last video that I posted. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It was a lot of fun. And honestly, it was okay. It was an okay experience. It was my first time ever reading romance, and I just figured, Adley Hazelwood is not for me because the writing was atrocious. It was just bad. It was cringe on another level. It was so cringe to the point where I was laughing, okay? I wasn't even upset that the writing was bad. I was just laughing, that having the time of my life because everything was just so poorly and badly written. The metaphors and analogies are just bad. So it was hard for me to like the book, and Elsie was also not a protagonist that I liked. I really did not like Elsie, and she does have, of course, elements that I can relate to, that I think we can all relate to, but at the end of the day, she just sounded so much more juvenile than she actually was, and that just really threw me off. I did like Jack, though. Okay, I did like Jack, and he is, kind of similar to Nanami Kento, which is a win. Okay, a win is a win. A win is a win in this case. So I didn't hate reading it. I didn't hate reading the book, but it is a 1.5 star. It has to be. I can't be here and sit here and say, oh my god, I'm giving it a 3-star just because I had fun. No, I do have to be objective with my rating, so it is a 1.5 star, but did I have fun? I actually did. I actually did have fun. It was so easy to read. Now I understand why people love reading romance, and especially the girls, why they like reading romance so much, because in fact, it is easy to read. Like, I read 50 pages in 1 hour, which was insane to me. It's insane because I usually only read, 30? I think that's what I usually read, so I did have fun, and I laughed a lot, and it just whiffed by so fast, but it is a 1.5 star because I think it could have been so much better. And if you do have, any other romance recommendations for me that are better written, let me know down below in the comments because I don't want to give up on the genre yet. And finally, the next book that I read in the month of July was O Despertar do Caos, do Ricardo C. Dias, a Portuguese author, so he is, a national author, and I actually really like this book because I don't usually tend to like Portuguese fantasy, and I know that sounds, kind of bad, but Portuguese fantasy just is, old classic fantasy, and I do like old classic fantasy, but it's just done in such a, poorly way, or it's just done in a copycat way, in the sense of like we are always copying the same tropes over and over again that have been used countless times. There's nothing new, so it all sounds just the same story in the same book. It does give nostalgic vibes, but that is not enough. That's not enough for me to like it. But Despertar do Caos, I actually really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it 3.75 stars. I think that is the best rating, or a 4-star. I'm still not really sure, but I don't think it's quite a 4-star yet. But this was by far my favorite Portuguese fantasy book, and it is very much inspired by Joe Abercrombie and Brandon Sanderson, which I think it also makes it better because he is, taking the best things that those two authors have and joining it together in one book. So, for example, he's taking the magic system and the world building from Brandon Sanderson, the lore, the mythology, everything, and he's also taking the character work from Joe Abercrombie and the tone and the premise from Joe Abercrombie as well, which I actually really, really enjoyed. The only criticism that I do have for this book is the fact that it's so short and so small, and I do understand that because the author told me that the reason why the book is so small is because here in Portugal, unfortunately, the publishers don't like publishing big, thick books because they just say they don't sell. And in that case, obviously, Portuguese authors, they tend to write, shorter books, and I think that really harmed this book in particular because we have such a big world. We have, a very complex and unique magic system. We also have a lot of characters that are going to meet up in character arcs, and that all needs time to marinate. It all needs time to, feel organic and natural. And because this book was so short, none of it felt natural. So, for example, two characters here, they have a romantic relationship, which is Saladin and Melunian. They have a romantic relationship. They meet each other and they instantly fall in love because they just really like each other, which I don't mind the insta-love trope. I actually don't mind it because I do think that happens in real life. Some people really feel attracted, on the get-go. My problem was both of them had a very, turbulent past. They had a lot of trust issues, which doesn't really make sense for them to be, so attracted to each other on the go and wanting to be with each other all the time. It doesn't really make sense because if you have trust issues, you don't really want to give your heart away, but that had to happen because, once again, it's a short book. So their relationship was way too rushed, in my opinion, and even the relationship between Gerval and Pepper, which is a friendship one, it was also too fast. It developed too fast because Pepper is a 15-year-old. He's a thief and he's very annoying. Like, he is. I do like him. I think he's so cute, but I can obviously obviously admit that he is annoying. Like, he's always talking in such a theatrical way, always lying, just these things. And Jarval finds it very annoying in the beginning, but then he goes to like him and like Pepper and become protective of him, in the sense of, like, that saying where you're the only one that can call your stupid brother stupid. That's literally their relationship. Only Jarval can think Pepper is stupid or dumb or a menace. No one else can. But once again, it felt very, very rushed because the book is short. So that is my main criticism of this book. And another criticism that I do have was Meludian. I don't really like her. Like, it's not that I don't like her. She's just indifferent to me. She's presented to us as a very badass warrior, but then she proceeds to kill nobody for the rest of the book and just spend the rest of the book being in love with Saladin and daydreaming about being with him. And, oh my god, but what does that mean with my vengeance and all that kind of stuff? It just, it didn't really, she doesn't seem like a badass warrior in my opinion, but I think she was meant to be that way, but she doesn't really feel that way. I don't really care about her plotline because her plotline was just, the romance between her and Saladin, which I'm not really into romance, so it wasn't different to me. So yeah, this book, I did like the world building. I think, the cold mountains, I always love cold mountains, okay? Winter, snow, absolutely love that. I did really like the magic system because it surrounds the energy of chaos. So some people can actually, absorb the chaos energy and transform it and manipulate it into some sort of power. For example, Saladin can become invisible. Jarval can stop time. So yeah, that's very OP. I know that's very OP, but and the more that you use it, the more chaotic the world becomes. And you always have a consequence. So for example, Saladin, in one of the instances, he uses power to become invisible and a vase broke. Because that's just what happens. When you use power and when you use the chaos as energy, chaos around you is going to happen. So it does depend on what you ask and how much power you want to use. Because obviously the more power you use, the worse consequences are going to happen. But I just found that very intriguing and very original. I do like where the story is going. But like I said, I do hope the second book is much longer because I do think these characters deserve a lot more time together and they need to marinate. And especially because of everything that happened in the ending of this book, which was explosive, we will need some time to process everything. So I do hope the author writes a little bit more. I know it's almost impossible, but yeah, I was actually very surprised because this is a Portuguese fantasy and I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars. And these were all of the books I read in the month of July. I will be ending, The Sunlight Man in a little bit. I think probably Wednesday, I don't know, but I'm just filming this on Monday. So let us talk about the books I want to read in August. So the first book that I'll be taking with me in August is going to be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is very, very surprising. And I will be starting reading this today. So I will start this book in July, but I obviously am going to read most of it in August. And this was a book that has, a little bit of a funny story. We celebrated 9 years together in July, in the month of July. And we decided, to challenge ourselves. And I recommended him a book and he recommended one to me. So I gave him Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. And he gave me Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, I was a little shook. I had a visceral reaction because I was not interested in reading Pride and Prejudice, like, at all. I don't like romance, like I said. I've said this many, many times. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not in my interest. So Pride and Prejudice, and, it's also a classic, which means that I'm going to take years to read this. But alas, I was challenged, so I do have to do this. I will admit that I was intimidated because I'm starting this in the 28th of July, which, insane. It doesn't even count, as a July read. It doesn't count as a July read. But I am going to be starting this, and I don't really have, I don't have expectations because a lot of people love this book. A lot of people love this story. They love Mr. Darcy, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to love this book as much as the other people. I don't have, that many expectations because of that. So I am expecting the writing to be good, though, because this is a classic. So at least, I get to savor the prose and the writing. But otherwise, I don't have any expectations whatsoever. And obviously, I will have to read A Feast for Crows of George R. R. Martin, the 4th book in the Game of Thrones series. I have to, okay? I have to read it in August, and I'm very, very excited, I'm excited, but not as excited as the other books. And let me tell you why. Because people say that the 3rd book, A Storm of Swords, is the best one out of the series. It's the best book they've read in their entire life. And I felt that. I felt that to an intimate level, to a visceral level. And now I know that A Feast for Crows is not going to be as good. So I'm not that excited, but I'm still excited. You know what I mean? Of course, I'm excited for this book. And I want to know what's going to happen because I'm pretty sure that George R. R. Martin is not going to spare any characters. Crazy things are about to go down. I am so excited to read that book. But I'm not as excited as the others because I just know it's not going to be as good as A Storm of Swords, which sucks. Okay, it sucks, but I'm going with an open mind. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe the other people are wrong, and I will be different. And obviously, since one of my goals this year is to finish The Cosmere, I do have to read the 2 novellas that Brandon Sanderson currently has. I think they are... Okay, I don't remember the names, but they're going to be put here. I think one of them is Six of the Dusk and something... I think one of them is Six of the Dust, and then the other one is Shadows of the Forest of Hell, like something along those lines. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I do have these 2 novellas to read, and then I'm going to be officially done with the Cosmere. I do have to read, obviously, Isles of the Emberdark. That is coming out in September. I think it already came out in July, but I do have that one more book, and I do have to read Six of Dust before I read that one. But then officially, I am done, people. I am done with the Cosmere, which is insane. I never thought I was going to say that this year, but only 3 books, literally only 1 book left, and 2 novellas, which I think each of them has like 50, 60 pages, so I'm going to read it really, really fast, and I don't know, it's just such a bittersweet feeling, you know, finishing the Cosmere, but I am excited for both of these novellas. I don't know how I'm going to feel about them, because novellas usually are my thing unless the story is pretty short. If the story is short, and the story feels short, then I do tend to like novellas, but if it's something, you know, very big and grand, and if the world is very, very interesting, I know I'm going to want to know more, but I don't know. Let's see how I feel about those 2 novellas. And then lastly, I do want to read a horror book. I don't know why, I just feel like it, okay? I feel like reading a horror book. It is August, it is summer, but I just don't want it to be summer, okay? I don't want it to be summer anymore. I'm tired, you know, I'm tired of this.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
And I want to read a horror book. So I'm going to get the spooky vibes from Eric LaRocca. I think his name is something along these lines. And I think the book is called The Trees Grew Here Because I Bled There. I think, you know, it's a very long title, so I don't know if I'm correct, but this is a collection of short stories, and I do want to read them. I am so excited. I've heard only good things of this short story book. I'm not really a short story type of reader, but I am excited for this one because, I don't know, I've heard that it's very creepy, and I love the cover. I absolutely love the cover. It just gives off those forest eerie vibes, and I love haunted forests, haunted houses, anything that is basically haunted, I absolutely love. So I am very, very excited. I don't know really what to expect because I've heard people talk good things about this, but obviously they don't really talk about the stories because they don't want to give spoilers. So I don't know any of the stories. I don't know what the vibe is. I can just, you know, assume that it's going to be something foresty, you know, due to the cover, and it's gonna have a lot of blood involved because, you know, it's in the title. So that is what I'm expecting. I have no other expectations. I don't know what I'm going into. All I know is I want some horror reads. I want the horror vibes because I miss Halloween so much. So I'm going to read a horror book. And these were all the books I read in July. My favorite being A Storm of Swords. That is my favorite out of this year, my favorite out of my entire life. And I'm so glad that I read that book and I finished it in July. It was just amazing, you know, it was just amazing. It was everything. And these are also all of the books I want to read in August. I am particularly excited for A Feast for Crows, obviously, that's the book that I'm most excited for because I'm just absolutely loving the Game of Thrones series. And with that, we've reached the end of this video, so please comment down below, you know, what books did you read in July, which one was your favorite, which one was your least favorite, what plans do you have for August, what is your TBR? Please comment all of that down below so I can know because I am nosy, okay? I do like to know what people are doing and reading, all that kind of stuff. And please subscribe and like this video because it really does help my channel out and it motivates me and validates me to keep continuing doing these videos. And I will see you guys on my next video. Goodbye!